So here we are with April's question of the month about unschooling, and it has to do with unschooling and school subjects. We have been doing these first Friday webinars. In January, we did a typical unschooling day. In February, we did Is Unschooling Really as Weird as It Sounds? In March, we did technology. And now we tackle the next hard topic, school subjects. Well, you can always go back. I have a playlist at YouTube of all of the webinars, so you're able to go back and get access to them. The recordings are there. They're trimmed up. The questions are carved off, so it's just the presentation. And the benefit of coming live is you have time for questions. And but the recording is still at YouTube on a playlist that says webinar playlist. Here we are with our big question of how to unschool school subjects. And I know that a lot of people have questions about that because you're like, wait a minute. I thought unschoolers don't do school subjects. Or I thought we were supposed to be moving away from that. And we are. But let's be real. In the beginning, it's very hard to do. We start to think about things like how will they learn what they need? So that's why it's important to look at why are we going to talk about this and how does it work? Because in fact, unschoolers do learn school subjects. They're just not divided up the way schools do it. So when we think about, tell me in the chat why you worry about the kids not doing school subjects if you choose to unschool. What is the problem? And these are some of the questions that come up, or some of the reasons. These are some of the reasons that people have for why they say, oh, but I got to do a little math. Oh, but I got to do a little of this or a little of that. Or I don't want them to come across as uneducated. I don't want people to make fun of them. I don't want all of that. Okay. I want you, when those questions come up in your head, I want you to think about where do they come from? Because most likely they come from your school experience. Your school experience meant if you didn't know something, you were humiliated. Your school experience meant that your class ranking mattered more than whether you helped somebody or whether you were kind or whether whether you really knew something that just didn't happen to be on the standardized test, right? Maybe you knew about lizards beyond compare, but lizards wasn't on the standardized test. Or something else, because the world is full of a bazillion topics, right? And so if you had some pile of knowledge that was really detailed, but it wasn't tested, then suddenly you were at the tail end of the class ranking, right? And so that stays with us for quite a while as we move into unschooling, where we worry about, oh, I don't want somebody to think they are, because most of the time, I will tell you, most of the time, the world is thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about you. And I think the other thing to remember is, are you still doing your people-pleasing thing? Are you still shooting for that A in parenting, shooting for that A in homeschooling mom? Because that too is a little bit left over. We do have I have a podcast about gaps, and I have a variety of blog posts and help for people that wonder about how will they get into college. And these are questions that we can handle at the end. And I'm happy to do that with you because it is not going to be a problem. All right. So here's what we know, that subjects focus on the teaching and not the learner. That when we stay with those subject lanes, I got to have 30 minutes of math and then we're good to go. Or I've got to have them write 3 lines of something and then we're good. Notice that that's focusing on the teaching aspect. That's focusing on you checking the box. It's not focusing on, is my child really developing and learning a skill that they're going to value and use. Now, It is really, really easy for us to come up with rationalization. I can already hear the rebuttals in your head to me saying that. Well, they will need it if they need to learn it, if they're going to be able to write any kind of thing in the business world. And what I want to tell you is they will be able to. At 7, maybe not. At 27, absolutely. And even at 17, I don't know. I'm thinking of my own kids who did not write book reports or research papers or anything like that. And they did just fine in college because by the time they got there, they learned what they needed and they wanted to. Because remember, when you're saying, just give me one more sentence, and your kid is reluctantly doing it, that is not helping them embrace learning. That is helping you check the box of at least I taught it. And sometimes that rationalization is, but this is how you learn. Only it's not. It's one way. It's not even the best way. It is a way that we're familiar with. And so we keep hammering at it, instead of looking at how the world has changed over the last 10, 20, 30 years, gigantically. And so we need to move with the times. There are a variety of other ways to learn. Because unschooling is really living with your kids as if school doesn't exist. And that's what I want you to remember, because yes, we're going to talk about subjects here, but that is partly to get your fear under control so that you don't feel the need to get some artificial interpretation going on, that you don't feel a need to inject a little whatever subject. It's interesting because the subject that you're going to kind of focus on is going to be the one that you don't feel that good about. Or it could be, I love books. I love reading. I want my kids to love. Well, they may or they may not. They're their own person. But if you say, I hate science, so I'm going to get a science curriculum. I hate math, so I'm going to get a math curriculum, or writing, or whatever the topic is. It's interesting. School taught you 12 years. You're supposed to have known that. Only it didn't really work. So let's not duplicate it, right? So if you're new to unschooling, there's a few things that you need to remember. All humans are hardwired to learn. Everybody has interests and curiosities, and the brain helps you create a truly individualized body of knowledge. If you keep these 3 things in your head, you can keep your fear at bay. It is not always the easiest thing to do because the world will push at you, right? The world will say, yeah, but they can't play video games their whole life, or I don't know how Lego and pretend play is going to help them. And you know what? You don't have to know. That's really the key. Their brain knows. Their brain is moving in the direction it needs to move. That is not to say that you should go off to the other side of the house and start a hobby. I mean, you can do that, but you also need to engage with them and help them explore their interests and expand on their curiosities and find what they need to make them, to help them have a full, rich life, because that's the key to unschooling. And it's the opposite of what we've all been told, right? We've all been told that parents need an expert and that kids need the basics first. And if we do this wrong, their future is ruined. But it's not true. Their future will not be ruined if you take an approach that's different from your familiar school approach. Remember, when you were in school, YouTube probably didn't even exist. I know a lot of people have a lot of pushback against video and YouTube, but the truth of the matter is here we are, right? Here you are learning about it. And that's how kids learn. If you can't figure out how to unclog the toilet, my guess is you go to YouTube. You don't get in the car, drive to the library to find a book about plumbing so that you can read it, right? You don't do that because it's too accessible. Information is so accessible now. We are on this cusp of moving away from, we've got to have an expert spoon feed us the information, and then we'll be quizzed on Friday. We're moving away from that. We've already moved away from it. So I want to help you figure out how to help your kids, because the truth of the matter is the kids are going to be living in the world of the future, not the world of the past. You may have rose-colored glasses and think, oh, when I was there, it was so great. Maybe. Wasn't great for everybody, first of all. But secondly, it isn't reality. And our job is to help our kids figure out how are they going to cope with reality. And one of the most important thing is not necessarily to memorize, but to know how to find resources, right? All right. So one of the things that unschooling, that successful unschoolers do is they find the hidden learning. They figure out, as they're moving in through this deschooling process, which is going to take more than 2 weeks. For those of you who think, oh, I did my 2 weeks of deschooling, I'm done with that. No, you're not. Because if you are still thinking they need a little math to be successful, what if they want to be an engineer? Then you need a little deschooling. It's not that I'm going to tell you, so don't do math, and suddenly the sky will open up at age 19 and engineering will fall into their laps. No, it doesn't work like that. A kid that, to use engineering as an example, a kid that wants to do engineering is going to be playing with building and math concepts all the while, because they're kind of have a natural proclivity for it. And you're going to be making like zip lines across the living room, or building something in the backyard, or Lego towers beyond compare. And these are the building blocks for that little budding engineer, right? But if you said, oh, but we got to do a couple worksheets, that doesn't really expand his knowledge of math concepts. It expands your knowledge of what he knows in that particular area. But that's not about the learner. That's about the teacher. And remember, unschooling is all about the learner. So when we think about hidden learning, I know everybody gets a little panicky. They're like, okay, fine. If we're not going to do the curriculum, what are we going to do? How am I going to make this work? And I don't want you to panic. I want to help you figure this out. Let me see. So if we haven't met, I'm Sue Patterson, and we stepped away from the school system in 1996. My 3 all unschooled kids are 35, 33, and 30. I always hesitate for a second. I always think, wait a minute, are they? One time I was in a conference and I was giving my kids ages from the front of the room, and one of their friends says, no, you're wrong. I'm like, oh, I get that one wrong all the time. I still see them as 7 and 5, but they're not. They're grown, and they all have homes and careers and families and all the adult things. Doors did not close for them, because I think that's one of the big fears, is that everybody thinks doors are going to close and they're not going to get to do something that they want to do because we took this unconventional play-based life. And that's not true. And one of the things that I learned along the way, that's one of the big reasons that I do this, is I learned how kids really learn, not how schools say they do. I learned how I really want to parent, how I want to prioritize connection, how I want to prioritize shared life experiences, how I want to live my life with my kids. And that life choice ends up giving them lots of opportunities to explore their own interests, even if they're not my interests. It's okay. We can all learn how to cooperate, and you may not want to go to theater practice, but they went to your soccer game. So let's do this. And we all move in that direction of following these interests, which basically turns into a ton of adventures, because this allows us to see that the world really does offer what they need. If we're not busy home checking the boxes, so I don't have time for that because we've got one more spelling list to do, then we missed out on something. So let's not do that. Let's prioritize the real world and activities that would help them connect more with their community, help them expand on their interests. Those are ways that unschooling works. So if we haven't met, you can find me at unschoolingmomtomom.com, the website, or at any of these social media platforms, because I've been there forever. And I have a podcast that comes out once a week. That's Unschooling Mom to Mom. That's on all of the podcast platforms. So you can listen to that. I try to do once a week. I don't always get there. It's about a 10-ish minutes of an unschooling pep talk to just kind of help you. You can always send me ideas, topics that you would like for me to talk about, and I'll just be in your ear while you're washing the dishes, and we can chat about unschooling. And I love that. It's just such an easy way to connect with you and just give you a little bit more encouragement, because I think that that is something that everybody needs a lot more of. And then over at YouTube, remember too that there are playlists for all of these webinars. There is a playlist that says webinars. There's also a playlist for deschooling, a playlist for getting started. There's a lot of videos over there that can help you figure out how to kind of DIY your way through this. All right, back to our topic. One of the things that makes unschoolers kind of like, ugh, why are you talking about subjects with them? Because real life doesn't come at you like subject. Only in school do you have a designated 45 minutes for this and 45 minutes for that and 45 minutes for the other. And in the real world, it's all merged together, right? And so you're not getting the practice when you're just staying in your lanes and shuffling from point to point. You're getting great practice if you want to work in a factory, which, may be a little bit of why that was created, but it's not giving you practice on how to find what you need. When I was in school, I can remember I loved worksheets. I loved doing the math problems and answering the correct answer. And I could rattle off my times tables, and it was really made me feel good about myself. They had tied all kinds of self-esteem into performance, right? And then we would come to those word problems. There would be like a whole page of math computation. And then at the bottom, there would be word problems, 3 usually. I hated them. You couldn't quite figure out. I'm always wondering about those cantaloupes. Why do they need so many? Or where is that train going and how fast? And I don't even take trains. And I wonder what it's like to ride on a train. My brain would start going. And then I realized after I was done, school's way behind, I realized life is more like word problems. Nobody comes at you and says 7 times 8, quick. Give me all of the ways to make 10. They don't do that. They come at you with a real life problem that we've got to get to grandma's house by 3 o'clock this afternoon. So what time do we need to finish lunch? And are we going to have time to swing by the library? And is there enough gas in the car? And should we, all the different things that come into a word problem. And so as you can see right there, there's a whole lot of math conceptually. And that's what you're going to be able to do as an unschooler, is to live in that world with them where they are not dividing things up into subjects. Instead, they're living in the real world. So one of the things that I want you to do is to think about the activities instead of the subjects. So instead of thinking about science and math and reading, you're thinking about they like lizards and Lego and Frisbee golf and all the things that they like. Think of the activities that you do with them and that they do on their own. And you start to look for the learning that's weaving through it, because that's how you're going to break out of that schoolish mentality. So learning comes from their interests, from any interests. You can hit so many subjects just from one particular interest. They don't do that in school, because how could you do that with 30 kids and one teacher? Instead, the focus is on we're going to hit these subjects and this scope and sequence for the subjects, and your interests you can do at home later after you're worn out. But one of the things that happens when you are not able to explore your interests, you start to think that learning applies to school and not life. Life is where I have my interests and my fun, and learning is drudgery. It happens at school. And we see that time and time again when kids come home from school and they're like, I was going to give them this toy, but it said educational on the box and I needed to take a Sharpie on it so that they wouldn't immediately reject it, because they have had that association, right? They have thought learning means no fun. And partly that's because of a misrepresentation that happens at school, that you have a teacher that says, this is going to be fun. And it is not that fun. It has not hit the level that we would call fun. It is more fun than 7 hours of worksheets, but it has not hit that level. It's certainly not the level where the bar where the kids put, as far as this is what I would call fun. They've been manipulated, and they're tired of it. They don't want to be manipulated and told that something's fun when it's not. We may have some back end work that has to get done so that we can help kids move through it, because when they're focused on their interests and their learning, then they're happy. So we're going to reverse engineer it. We're going to do this in 2 parts. So there's a lot of little parts, but basically it boils down to 2 things. So we're going to look at what happens in their day. Think of real life. What happens? Cooking, hiking, pet care, conversations, video games, any kind of games, stories, family reading, watching movies together, listening to audiobooks, going out to eat, community service. What other kinds of things do your kids like to do? Go ahead and put it in the chat if you want to tell me some of the things that your kids like to do. And actually, if you do that, if you put in the chat, what are the things that your kids enjoy, I can help you see where the subjects are. So that might be reassuring. So that's part 1. And then part 2, we're going to go ahead and find that learning that's hiding in there. We're going to go ahead and look at those subjects so that you can get that fear calm down in your head and say, oh, yeah. There is a little of that, a little of that, and a little of that. And before you let that little voice in your head say, but that's not enough, it's cumulative. So a little here, a little here, a little here, a little here does help you learn. It does provide what you need. So I have this form. Katie's going to put it in the chat. For those of you that are listening to the recording, I'll put in the description a way to get this particular PDF. Where are those subjects hiding? It's something I made for my membership group because I just like to make PDFs for them all the time. I have hundreds for them. But what I want you to do when you get this is you write down Lego, My Little Pony, conversations about the eclipse, all the different things that are happening in their day. And maybe you'll fill the whole page for one day. And maybe you won't. Maybe you just do a couple. Or maybe you have a couple that are really hard. And you're like, I don't see the value in Fortnite. And you write Fortnite. And then you look in here and you see, did they have to read something? Did they have to do a little math? Did they have to buy the game? Was there a budget? Is it a coin economy? Do you add and subtract and divide? Do you have to know a certain number of trees to get a certain number of boards to build a size of a house? That's all math concepts. Maybe it's science and biology. Maybe they're playing some little game where they have to set up a pasture for their cows or their sheep or all the different things, and they're playing make-believe with it. And there's a little bit of story happening. There's language arts. They're developing their set. Their characters are developing. We watch movies and we listen to books, and when we play pretend, we're making story arcs, and that's happening, and that's part of language arts. It's part of creative writing. So social studies, are you going to the farmer's market? Did you pick up some trash as you were walking by that was in your yard and you're talking about, oh, this could be recycled, or, oh, we have to be careful not to let our trash blow out of the car because it's windy and we had our sack of fast food there. All the different things that as we're having conversations about life, you can check some of these boxes: geography, fine arts, PE, history, civics, technology, physics, chemistry, science, about all these things. Just do a little check, 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 check. Because what you will see, pretty soon you'll get, well, maybe not soon, but you might get tired of writing it all down. And you might all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, I know that one. I've already got that. We're good on that. And so then you get a little bit more confident. And that's my goal, really. My goal is to help you be confident, which is why my membership is called Creating Confidence. But if you want to use this is a cool tool that could really help you figure out where those subjects are hiding. So yes, think of it as a scavenger hunt. You're on a scavenger hunt. So here's another thing, because here we are in the spring. It is the time that people start looking for curriculum for fall. And you will start to see emails and Facebook groups and Instagram and all these different places talking about, oh, but what are you going to do for spelling? What are you going to do for this? What are you going to do for that? And it can really get to be a lot of pressure. And so if you are working on this little PDF, this will help you combat that. You will be like, I don't have to buy Shirley grammar, because we're having conversations about it and we're talking about it. And we're noticing that when we watch that movie and they talk like that, how does that come across? And we're using good grammar. So we don't have to have, kids don't have to be able to learn how to diagram a sentence unless they're into editing in college, realistically. And then suddenly they're like, oh, that's why that sounds funny. Oh, that's why that makes sense. Or if they happen to like it, then they're already doing it. They're getting the Grammar Girl app or whatever. Or maybe you are because you like it, and that's okay too. And so when you use good grammar and you are speaking with good grammar, then the kids are picking up on it. Okay, so there's our hidden learning thing. I have another PDF for you that just gives you an example here. Just cooking. Think about, and that's why I'm going to do a few slides here of different examples of where learning subjects, where these subjects are happening in just an everyday activity. So Katie can put this math PDF there. You can have this. And if you're getting the recording, I'll have the PDF linked for you to access to. But here are the different subjects: math, geometry, science, language arts, health, social studies, life skills. There are a lot of things that happen because the kids helped you chop some stuff for a salad, or because they baked from a brownie box. You know, they're learning about those measuring cups. They're learning about, we got to allow a little bit of time to let the oven preheat. Or we want to put this back in the fridge so that it's chilled. Or the microwave can speed up room temperature a little bit. All these different things are happening, and they're math and science, their geometry, as we're trying to figure out what size pans, what volume is going to require a certain thing. How is the food going to change based upon the heat or the cooling? And will the pan that we've gotten accommodate that? And it's chemistry, it's chemical reactions that are making those changes happen. Then there's the anatomy and physiology that's happening within our own body nutritionally, as why does that make us feel better? Why did I feel hungry sooner after I ate that as opposed to after I ate something else? Why did this particular food choice not satisfy me the way I thought it was going to? All of these things are learning. You're learning about your body, you're learning about nutrition, and then you're turning to look at the back of the can and you're seeing, oh, well, look at these ingredients that are in here, and here's some percentages. And suddenly you got a little more math, you got a little more reading, you got a little more science, all just because you were deciding to read the back of the can with them. And so each of these tiny little things add up. So when you go back to that hidden subjects checklist, you can go over and you're like, we baked brownies, and you can check all the boxes that have little pieces that helped you see where the subjects were. The other thing that does is it offsets that really mean voice in our head that said, that's not enough. You're screwing this up. Oh my gosh. All of that kind of negative talk that happens in our heads. Sometimes it happens with some of the people in our lives, but sometimes we internalize it and we say these things to ourselves. And so if you do that, if you physically check those boxes and you're looking at it, you kind of begin to break the grip of that really mean inner critic that you have. So a plus, right? So these are some of the ways that just a simple thing like cooking with the kids. And you may say, oh, my kid doesn't want to cook with me. Okay, fine. Maybe they would just crack an egg. Maybe they would be happy to eat the brownies. And maybe you could just show them, oh, look at this on the back of the brownie box. For the people that have a hard time reading, there's pictures. There's 3 eggs or 2 eggs. There's a measuring cup. There's water or milk or whatever. And so, on some of those boxes, they have that. And so it's interesting to just show them, look at this. I remember spending so many years just reading the back of a cereal box, right? And so they might be interested just for that tiny little bit. And sometimes that's because we have turned things into a lesson plan that should never have been a lesson plan. And so they're like, oh gosh, she's going to get started on that. And so don't do that. Just say, oh, look at that. That's kind of cool. And then put it away. And that way they can start to see that you are not trying to trick them into some learning experience. That hidden subjects thing is for you to extract those subjects out of that activity so that you can feel more confident that they are learning what they need. Because their minds don't care about subjects. Their minds just want to pursue the interest and the topic. And then when they get to something that they don't know how to do, that will be the motivation for how they learn. If you had said, I want you to learn about these measuring cups, and they were not interested. But then suddenly they wanted to make something, and oh, look, it has it written on there. How cool is that? Easy. Because they didn't know, and now they do. And it didn't take a lesson plan to make that happen. So if you're thinking, oh, my kid doesn't want to do that, well, maybe right now they don't, but they will eventually have to make their own food. And so maybe as a teenager, I did see a really cool Pinterest thing. I just love it, where they had taken the inside of a kitchen cupboard and they hung all of the measuring cups in sequence so that you could see the largest down to the smallest. And so it was really easy to see that 2/3 was bigger than 1/3 and it was bigger than 1/2. And so it kind of helped give you a little bit of a visual. And then they had it written like with a little bit of tape or something over the top. And so I always thought, oh, I should have done that with my kids. They would have liked it. And we always had, and I consulted it often, one of those magnetic conversion chart things on the fridge. So if you couldn't find the 1/2, you could see that you just needed 2 1/4 to get there. And so I was always having them tell me how many tablespoons go into such and such. And they would look at it. And even if they're not memorizing it, they know that there is a thing to consult to get the information. And that's really the key, right? Because I can't tell you that 20 years from now, magnetic conversion charts on the fridge are even going to exist. There will probably be a hologram that I can speak it and then it will suddenly show up. But knowing that you have to look for the answer, that's the key, right? Okay, so there's a little bit about cooking. So let's think about, okay, my kid mainly plays outside. They're just playing outside. So what are some of the subjects that show up when they're playing outside? There's math, they're building, they've got trial and error, there's geometry, they're seeing what works. They're even just look at the shape of their building structures. You're looking at buildings as you're walking down the street and you're seeing a fence and then how they've spaced everything evenly, and there's opportunities to see, so that then when they're older and they're taking class and somebody says something about parallel lines, and they immediately can visualize it, because you've been, oh, look, those lines will never cross, because they're just like a Hot Wheels track. It just goes, those two sides just go. And so you could even go on a scavenger hunt. Let's find all the parallel lines. Let's find all of you can sometimes just do this talking to yourself in the car. You're like, oh, wow, look at the, different structures that you see and what they are. One time somebody was talking about that they used to look for the alphabet in different structures of like, oh, look, that's kind of like the letter C. All right, let's look for D. Let's see if we can find D. And then we just start playing. Oh, look, well, there's an E for the exit sign. Perfect. But maybe it's also something in the trees, or something in the on somebody's house that's the shape of their door or something. So playing outside and learning to actually see things, to look, as opposed to just rushing on through, makes a difference. So science, there's weather and earth science and plants and seasons. We're doing the scientific method all the time when we're making a guess at something, and then we modify that. Didn't quite work how I thought, so I'll modify it. That's just a hypothesis until you come to your theory, right? And so all we're doing is figuring it all out. Language arts, we talked a little bit about make-believe being story and character development, and we have, overcoming obstacles and plots that twist, and there are just lots of different things. They're learning about, what berries could they eat or not eat. They could take a taste of that mint, but don't take a taste of this other stuff. The landscape that changes in their where you live, your seasons, how those change, how the plant growth is different at the top of the mountain versus the bottom of the mountain, or at the beach versus inside, or more at, what plants can grow in pots on sidewalks and who waters it, things like that. This is all about learning a little bit more about science. And so go back to your hidden subjects checklist, and you can check off all of those boxes and feel better. And and all of it is developing life skills, right? Acquiring a variety of skills that they actually need. So if you think of like story time, maybe that's easy to think, oh, well, yeah, language arts, obviously. But maybe it's the cost of the book, or the number of pages in the book, and they look at the size of the book, or the shape of the book, or the math concepts that show up in the story, or the science concepts, or the history, or why is Ben Franklin wearing that outfit? Or why is, why does that astronaut have that kind of a outfit on? And so these are all conversations that allow them to expand on their curiosity. And so all of these are different ways that story time is more than just language arts. It's also health and social studies and math and science and history and life skills. So the video games, last month we did the technology topic, unschooling and technology. And one of the things that happened in the free PDF that was given out, and Katie can put that link in here if you missed it and you want the link to the how do unschoolers overcome their fear of technology. It had these topics of all the things that happen when a kid plays video games. And so sometimes what has happened is we have had so much outside influence that says how bad that all is, that it has prevented us from noticing that there's learning happening there too. That if their brain is gravitating towards it, there's something about it that they like. And there are skills, soft skills, traditional academic skills. There's a lot of skills that are happening. All right. So just today I made let me see if I can pause this for a second. Just today I made a reel because I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll with this technology. Over in the membership group, we've been doing a technology challenge. And so I've been pulling together all kinds of information about unschooling and technology. And so I thought, oh, I'll just put it in here so you can see it. And so what I did here are some of the things that are specifics that deal with those particular topics. And so I'm just going to kind of run through this with you really quickly and see if this is something that reassures you a little bit. So there's language arts, there's writing. You know, writing isn't always penmanship. It isn't always physically holding a pencil. It also has to do with outlining ideas in our heads or storyboarding or reading other people's writing and learning how that works. And it's typing and it's chatting and things like that. And so kids are in fact learning writing skills, and they're learning research skills when they want to see how do I beat that level? Then they're looking around to find somebody that beats the level and is willing to show them. And lots of times, where do they go? They go to YouTube and they find their answers. So we talked a little bit about creative writing and story arcs and writing stories. As teenagers, they might be interested in writing fan fiction, and where they take the story and change it up or insert them into the story or change the ending. And those are things that happen when you haven't made them think writing is so no fun. Instead, writing is a cool way to expand your storytelling abilities. So technical writing, that's pretty easy to see that with video games, where you have to read the instructions on how to set it up, and you're reading FAQs, and then they're developing vocabulary, and there's chats, and there's reviews and how-tos. The math that comes from playing video games has often to do with it, that they're in this coin economy, but it also has to do with their budget and their percentage, how much life they have left on that particular character. That these are all problem solving, and these mazes that they go through, those are often playing with math concepts. And so as you think about higher math concepts, the statistics, the ratio and proportion, the engineering, I do have a math course I offer that shows all the ways that math shows up in your daily life. That might be something you would be interested in. History, lots of history to be learned in playing some of these video games. And then sometimes one thing leads to another, and you're like, well, did they really do that? Or is that fiction? Or did that really happen? And what was that catapult? How did they make it? What did they do? Why did they wear those outfits they wore? And then also you can develop some cultural awareness. You can learn about different lifestyles, or learn about nuances in other societies, or making friends with somebody that you can't play with until it's midnight because it's noon their time. And so suddenly you're learning a little bit about time zones and about ways that math just moves through our life because we're playing these video games. Earth science, geology, landforms, astronomy, biomes, all kinds of different things that happen. You know, learning about animals, learning about, oh gosh, all my cows died in Farmville or something. And maybe you just learn just a little bit more, even just to look at the layout and you see the geometry in there, or you see the color changes, or you see the ways that if you were going to draw it, what that would be like. So anatomy and physiology, they can learn about how bodies work. They can learn about why they work the way they do. They can learn about their own eye fatigue or shoulder ache and what they need to do about it. And the reality of comparing some of the video game body shapes to the real life. And lots of times people get a little bit worried about that. And it's just open for conversation. It just allows you to say, people don't really look like that. And they know it in the same way that we knew that Popeye and olive oil didn't really look like that. And so, you know, there wasn't anybody that was like that. And so those kinds of things are universal, that cartoon depictions of things. But it's worth a conversation, right? Fine arts, noticing colors and aesthetics and making clothing and things that you need in order to advance your characters. the information technology, you know, it's basically computer science. These are some of the things that come from all of this is just simple playing a little Mario. Personal development, they're learning about themselves. They're learning to develop skills with dealing with frustration with themselves, frustration with other people, frustration with not being able to do the things that they wish they could do. And all of that is just something that gives you an opportunity to talk to them about. And then there's that guide, if that's something that you didn't get last time. Or I think I have it at Instagram too. These are some graphics that I've made over the years about some examples of ways that kids learn math or reading or spelling. And if you want to screenshot it, or it shows up in the deschooling guide and also in the, I think the unschooler, these basic ones with this formatting is in the unschooling FAQ that's over at the website, all the different topics that give some examples for actual ways that they're going to develop these skills. And it's all happening right here under our noses. You don't have to go by curriculum. All you have to do is notice it. Okay, this is another thing that you can take a screenshot of, ways that these subjects are happening in your life all the time. When you start to see this, you're like, oh yeah, that too. Oh yeah, that. So you could print this off and then circle the ones that you're like, oh man, I feel really good about my history knowledge or about my whatever. And then you suddenly see that subjects and learning are happening everywhere. It's from the deschooling guide, which Katie can put the link if you want to get that. If you join the membership, all of the unschooling guides are part of it. So that's something to consider, including the Everything Counts ebook, which is available if you want to just get the ebook. And it has a little bit more of a teenager focus of the different ways that teenagers can play with life and still check the boxes for the transcript that you may need to create. So sometimes it helps for parents of younger kids, to get that Everything Counts ebook, because then you're not having this dread or this worry for the future. Instead, you can kind of be more confident today because you know that you're not going to be worried. There'll be plenty of opportunities to learn all the subjects that they need at the level that they actually need. So here are some of the ways that we can continue to work together. If there's more information that you're looking for, I have a Jumping into Unschooling course and the Learning Math course. And those are discounted if you're in the membership group, because, you know, that's really where I want you to be. Because then we can talk twice a week and I can help you figure out the specifics of things that are happening in your world that keep you from being able to embrace it. But if you're like, I'm not really a membership person, that's okay. I have 21, 22 different guides that you could just put yourself on a 2-year program. Every month you get a new guide and you like, this is my month that I'm really going to conquer my fear about socialization, or this is my month that I'm going to conquer my fear about technology, or am I doing enough, or all the different things that can keep you from embracing this way. And so the other thing is, I do have one more PDF to share with you that has to do with, gives you some links to some things that you can get right away for free. And you can read about and you can learn about different ways to see the subjects that are happening in all of your daily life. And so that is that. All right. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I just noticed over here, loves creating stuff with cardboard and lots of tape. One year, my son was very much into this. And he was the happiest I've ever seen him when he got a Christmas present. You know, at Christmas time where they sell the Scotch tape, like a pack of 10. So I just got him one and wrapped it. And he's like, oh my gosh. He was so happy. So Sheena, that may be something that is something that you guys would like. I'm seeing if she's still here. I don't know. Or any of you who have little guys or girls that like to tape and put things together. Okay, I'm going to look through here and see. Oh my, lots of chatting. Okay. Making a transcript. Those are when you're writing that, Tiffany and Lisa, are you, because I didn't know. This is a subject that you're hoping that I do. Is that maybe what you are? I think you can unmute. Katie will let you. She might not let you. Okay, well then you can just write it at the bottom and say yes. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. I do have a transcript course that if you really want me to help you walk through it and figure it out based upon your kids. But we could do it as a little 30-minute, here's a little bit. And we are in the membership group this month, actually next Friday. We're talking about how to finish those end of the year progress reports or evaluations that some people have to have in a different state. And we're going to pool our resources and our knowledge so that you don't have to do that by yourself. As for the transcripts, we are going to talk a little bit about that too next week in the membership group. So if anybody wanted to join the membership group, you could get all the benefits of that. And I'll help you figure it out for your kids and their specific interests. Over in the members, I mean, I just keep talking about that membership group, don't I? But over there, we do have the transcript course. It's included because, it's all included. Anyway, it's all over there. It started as a workshop that I did there. And I want to help you figure out how to do this because it's just not that hard. Remember too, and we'll talk about it, but I may have to do it in June. I don't know. But remember, you're only when you write a transcript, they don't want to know all the specifics. They want to know, did you cover English? All right. English 1, English 2, English 3, English 4. Cover is subjective. I promise you, when you go to sign your kid up for wherever, half the time I was taking them and it was some work study kid sitting at the table saying, next. All they were looking for was a signature and a date for graduation. They didn't want to know all that we went to NASA for science or the Smithsonian they didn't care. And so if you're going to go straight to a university, they may care a little bit more. And that's okay because a lot of places are accepting all kinds of narrative descriptions, but know that no one is going to care about it as much as you and your learner, and probably your learner not even as much as you. And so it's okay. You can just feel good, and you can come to the membership group, and we'll tell you you're doing great. Katie says, I'm beyond thankful for Sue's creating confidence group, not just for me, but my family as a whole. Just think of all that extra money you'll have at your disposal when you don't feel the need to buy all the curriculum. That's right, Katie. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm so glad you're in there. It has been a true pleasure to be able to help families figure out how to do this, to see them figure out how they don't have to stick with the status quo and they can opt for a more connected, a more reality-based educational path for their kids. And so that's what I can help you do. All right, let's see, you guys. I hope this was helpful, and I will be back again next month to help you figure out some other obstacle that's keeping you from embracing a way that could really, really help you. So thanks for coming, and I will see you in all the places. All right, bye.